In this video, I want to finish fixing the layout in the header bar so that it looks more like our mockup. First thing I'll do is get rid of all the default margin or space that coincide with block level elements by default. In our CSS file, I will use the all selector instead of trying to create a different selector for each possible element. With this all selector, I can easily set the margin to 0 pixels for all elements in my web page. I'll save that, refresh my preview, and now I've eliminated all that extra space. And now that I've done that, I can get to work on adding padding or whatever else I need to so that it will look more like my mockup. I'll start here on the left side. Looking at my Photoshop document here, I will estimate that I have about a 25 pixel space there on the left between the edge and the letter R. And since I know that this is probably symmetrical, then I could say that it will be a 25 pixel margin at the top, bottom, and on the right side also. I can just go to my header selector and add a padding property there, and I will set that to 25 pixels. And using padding, it will automatically add a 25 pixel padding on all 4 sides, the top, left, right, and bottom. Save that and refresh, and there's our 25 pixel padding all around. 25 on the left, 25 pixels on the right, 25 pixels at the top, and 25 pixels at the bottom. That's looking good. So now I'm ready to push this line of navigation links just a little bit down so that it'll line up a little better with this H1 element. And instead of messing with padding on all 4 sides, I only want to push it from the top. So I will just add a padding to the top of nav, which would be the container for all of these links. We'll say padding top. Yeah, let's estimate that to be about 15 pixels. Save that, refresh, and that pushed it down by about 15 pixels so that it lines up a little better. And we'll do the same thing for this Facebook icon. We'll just gotta add a padding to the top to just push it down just a little bit. And we'll just estimate that at about 5 pixels. We'll see what that looks like. In my HTML file, I look at this IMG element and see that I don't have any kind of class applied to the IMG element. And I do have something for that div that contains that image, but I don't want to make any kind of changes to this class right here because I want to be able to use that with other elements in the future. It's a pretty specific class selector for the grid system, and I don't want to mess with that. What we'll do then is just create a new class. We'll just call this one FB. Pretty clever, right? And we will add this class selector in our CSS.FB. And this one will be for adding a padding to the top of 5 pixels. Save my CSS, save my HTML, and now this Facebook icon should be pushed down by 5 pixels from the top. And that's what we get there. Comparing my mockup to our actual web page, it looks pretty close. I see now that I could probably stand to push this Facebook icon to the right so that it looks more like that. Let's see what we can do about that. Let's create something within this div, some kind of selector that will make things align to the right instead of to the left by default. Let's do the same thing with the FB icon. We'll create like a class that might be useful for other elements. I'll call it right align. And this right align can be used for any elements in the future for this website or web page that I want to give right alignment to. We'll just say dot right align. We'll say text align right. Save, make sure I save, and refresh. There we go. Now it's aligned to the right within its container. So this is the container. That's how wide the div is, and now you can see it is pushed to the right. It's right aligned, and then that extra space to the right of that, right here, that would be just from having a padding all around header. So now we're starting to put a lot of different things together so that we can start making our web pages look the way they do. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and add this baby image, and then I want to make a hyperlink out of this one right here. And then these other ones, I will save that for you to work on before you submit Lab 3. And I'll also have you make a link, a hyperlink out of this Facebook icon. Now the baby image, I don't want to add that within my header container because my header container has this background. I want to make it separate from the header. What I could do is create a div, hold this header bar and the image. Here's the opening div for that container, and I'll put the closing div right after the closing header. I will fix my white space so that I can see later on that the header section is nested within this particular div. And now within the same div, I can add this IMG element of that baby. We'll do the same 4 attributes that we always use for IMG elements in this class so far. SRC, we are looking for an image that's inside an images folder in relation to index.html. And then inside images, that baby picture would be sleeping-baby.jpg. The width is 1200 and the height is 573. And the alt, we'll give it a value of sleeping baby. Oh. Close that IMG element with a // and a greater than sign. Save that and refresh our preview. So now what we have is, depending on your page preview, I have a really high resolution monitor. So if I open this all the way, my web page is actually this wide, but I set my image to be 1200 pixels wide. And as you will recall from what I've mentioned before in other videos, for this class, we are concentrating on fixed width websites rather than websites that are responsive or fluid. And we've had our fun with our navigation bar there, our header bar, that's fluid and keeps its proportions. But now it's time to make it so that we have a fixed width design, like so, or like this completed page right here, to where it stays the same no matter how big or small I make my browser window. To do that, let's constrain the entire body so that it's only 1200 pixels wide instead of taking up the entire width like this. Let's add a body selector, and we'll say width 1200px. Save that and refresh our preview. And now we are left with a fixed width web page. It's 1200 pixels. Now, most web pages that you visit will have it to where the page is centered within the browser window. To do that, we can set the margin to 0 auto. And a margin property has two values. First value would be for the top and bottom margins. And then the second value would be for the left and the right margins. And when you have your left and right margins set to auto, this means that they will be equal no matter how wide you make your browser window. And when the left and right margins are equal, this has the effect of centering the entire web page. So let's see if that works. Save, refresh, and now our web page is centered no matter how big or small I make my browser window. And since I constrained the entire body to be 1200 pixels wide, when my browser window is small enough, I will not be able to see the whole thing. Instead, I would have to scroll left and right to see this. And this is an example of a fixed width page design. Before we continue with the next video, let me compare this with our, oh, I remember what I need to do now. There is a little border here at the bottom to separate it from the main content, and we'll do that. And just kind of looking ahead, I see that I will need to use that again here, some kind of border, and then here again. And this is when it's great to use a class selector that I know I can use over and over. I can think of this little border here as something that I can add to the container at the bottom side of it. This div right here, I want to add a border to the bottom portion of that so that it will add that right here, because this div is a container for this bar and this image. So I'll just create a class for that. I'll just call this one bottom border. Now we'll create that class somewhere. Let's do that here. Oh wait, I need to match that. That's bottom border. property is border, and we only want it to be for the bottom portion, so we'll say border bottom. If we leave the dash bottom out, then it will add a border on all 4 sides, and we don't want that. I only want it for the bottom side of the div. And let's see how thick that is. Looking at my mockup, we'll say it's about 2 pixels thick, and the color is 6B605C. See if I can remember all that. Okay, so 2 pixels solid, and the color is 6B605C. Save my CSS, save your HTML, and now we've added a border at the bottom, and you might see that there is that extra space right there. Let's just deal with that in the next video.